Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. There are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what isn't true, the other is to refuse to believe what is true. Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. Don't forget to love yourself. Take a chance and you may lose. Take not a chance and you have lost already. The most painful state of being is remembering the future, particularly the one you'll never have. Prayer does not change God, but it changes him who prays. It's better to get lost in the passion than to lose the passion. The most common form of despair is not being who you are. Do it or don't do it, you will regret both. Once you label me, you negate me. The crucial thing is to find a truth which is truth for me, to find the idea for which I am willing to live and die. To dare is to lose one's footing momentarily. Not to dare is to lose oneself. Leap of faith, yes, but only after reflection. The highest and most beautiful things in life are not to be heard about, nor read about, nor seen, but, if one will, are to be lived. Without risk, faith is an impossibility. Who am I? How did I come into the world? Why was I not consulted? For without risk there is no faith, and the greater the risk, the greater the faith. I'm so misunderstood that people misunderstand me even when I tell them I'm misunderstood. God creates everything out of nothing, and everything which God is to use, he first reduces to nothing. Be that self which one truly is. The function of prayer is not to influence God, but rather to change the nature of the one who prays. Confidence is the present tense of hope. People demand freedom of speech as a compensation for the freedom of thought which they seldom use. The door to happiness opens outward. Face the facts of being what you are, for that is what changes what you are. To love another person is to help them love God. The more a person limits himself, the more resourceful he becomes. Patience is necessary, and one cannot reap immediately where one has sown. Wherever there is a crowd there is untruth. The thing that cowardice fears most is decision. To be a teacher in the right sense is to be a learner. I am not a teacher, only a fellow student. Prayer is a silent surrendering of everything to God. Purity of heart is to will one thing. Whoever has learned to be anxious in the right way has learned the ultimate. God does not think, he creates. He does not exist, he is eternal. It is not the path which is the difficulty, rather, it is the difficulty which is the path. The proud person always wants to do the right thing, the great thing, but because he wants to do it in his own strength, he is fighting not with man, but with God. There is nothing with which every man is so afraid as getting to know how enormously much he is capable of doing and becoming. Love is all, it gives all, and it takes all. Therefore do not deceive yourself. Of all deceivers fear most yourself. Love believes all things and yet is never deceived. It belongs to the imperfection of everything human that man can only attain his desire by passing through its opposite. Hope is passion for what is possible. Life is lived forwards, but understood backwards. The tyrant dies and his rule is over, the martyr dies and his rule begins. It is very dangerous to go into eternity with possibilities which one has oneself prevented from becoming realities. A possibility is a hint from God, one must follow it. This, then, is the ultimate paradox of thought, to want to discover something that thought itself cannot think. The highest of all is not to understand the highest but to act upon it. People settle for a level of despair they can tolerate and call it happiness. If you think you understand, it isn't God. A Possibility is a hint from God. One must follow it. I have only one confidant, and that is the silence of night. If anyone on the verge of action should judge himself according to the outcome, he would never begin. No time of life is so beautiful as the early days of love, when with every meeting, every glance, one fetches something new home to rejoice over. I believe that there is a longing in my soul that searches the whole world. When you read God's Word, you must constantly be saying to yourself, "It is talking to me, and about me." The Bible is God's love letter to us. What if everything in the world were a misunderstanding? What if laughter were really tears? Had I to carve an inscription on my tombstone, I would ask for none other than the individual. Love does not alter the beloved, it alters itself. In my great melancholy, I loved life, for I love my melancholy. It is not where we breathe, but where we love, that we live. To pace about, looking to obtain status, looking to attain importance, I can think of nothing more ridiculous. In the eyes of God, the infinite Spirit, all the millions that have lived and now live do not make a crowd. He only sees each individual. It is perfectly true, as philosophers say, that life must be understood backwards. But they forget the other proposition, that it must be lived forwards. It is the normal state of the human heart to try to build its identity around something besides God. Happiness is the greatest hiding place for despair. Seek first God's kingdom, that is, become like the lilies and the birds. Become perfectly silent, then shall the rest be added unto you. On the secretly blushing cheek is reflected the glow of the heart. A man who cannot seduce men cannot save them either. Pleasure disappoints, possibility never. And what wine is so sparkling, who so fragrant, what so intoxicating, as possibility? Fate, then, is the nothing of anxiety. What looks like politics, and imagines itself to be political, will one day unmask itself as a religious movement. Faith is a marvel, and yet no human being is excluded from it, for that in which all human life is united is passion, and faith is a passion.